Hi everyone, welcome to another video. I'm Lauren Macar. Today I'm going to talk about the 3 books that I read last week. As I said in one of my previous videos, I'm now going to do weekly wrap-ups instead of bi-monthly ones because I've been reading way too much. However, I'm not sure yet how I'm going to call these videos. I know a lot of people have been doing Friday reads, but my week is from Monday to Sunday, so Friday reads just doesn't make sense in the little boxes that are in my head. So I think I'm gonna give them the names corresponding to the week number, but I don't think in week numbers either, so I don't know yet what to do. If you have an idea, please let me know. Anywho, I've read 3 books last week, so let's get cracking. The first was Severance by Ling Ma, which I read on audio. I went into this book completely blind. I was just looking for an audiobook to listen to and was looking at my Goodreads list of books that I wanted to read and saw that this one was on script, so I was like, okay, fine, whatever, and I'd completely forgotten why I wanted to read it in the first place. Turns out, in this book we follow Candice in a post-pandemic world, and the global pandemic that she's had to deal with in, I think it was 2011 or something like that, eradicated 95% of the population. So that was an interesting read, to say the least. Her pandemic has a disconcerting resemblance with our pandemic, namely that it originated in China. Luckily, that's about everything that is the same, because the Shenzhen fever comes from a fungus and not a virus, so it spreads completely differently. And the symptoms are completely different as well. People start losing themselves. They start getting into a loop of some habit or another that they have, and they just do that over and over again. So for example, at one point there's a fevered family, and they're just having family dinners over and over and over again. So the mother just distributes plates and then they all sit down and they do like this and they're completely blank, they're not there anymore, and then the mother picks up all the plates again and then she redistributes them, etc., etc. But because they're in this loop of whatever it is that they are doing, they forget to actually eat, they forget to sleep, and so they eventually die. And there is no cure for that disease, hence why it eradicated 95% at least of the population. Now, part of the book follows Candice in this world where she joins a group and they try to survive, basically. And part of it is about her past. Her parents are immigrants from China who then moved to the US, and after her studies she's moved to New York and she wants to become this artist over there. She's a photographer and she ends up in a job that she doesn't really like but doesn't dislike enough either, and it talks a bit about her relationship with her boyfriend and stuff like that. And between her talking about her past, we've got this post-pandemic world. The premise of this novel was very interesting, especially comparing it to our situation. I thought it was interesting to see how in the novels where there's this very slow realization that something is wrong. In the beginning it's just, oh yeah, that Chinese disease, and they're not really seeing how it creeps up on them as well. It was interesting also to realize that because theirs goes to a completely different level, at one point they have no governance anymore, there is no media discussing what's going on. Reading this book kind of made me grateful, sort of, for our situation, because we still have governance. And I mean, don't get me wrong, COVID is terrible. There are people dying, and even if you're just ill, it's not a whole lot of fun, and people are losing their jobs. But we don't necessarily all die. Our world is still standing, so it could be worse, is all I'm trying to say. Now, I wasn't that interested in Candice. She didn't really grip me or anything. She's kind of bland and a bit grey and stuff, but I think that has to do with my reading mood more than the book, because I know I've been sitting at home a lot and there's not a lot to do and not a lot to look forward to, so everything is starting to blend into one another, and that means that if a character isn't super special, it won't stand out to me very much, and that's what happened with Candice, I believe. But all in all, this is a nice book to read, especially if you're into the pandemic literature thing, but also like when it's not only about the pandemic, then this is absolutely a book for you. Next, I finished a graphic memoir, which is Good Talk by Mira Jacob. In the book, she talks about her experience as a first generation American because her parents are originally from India. And she talks about growing up being an Indian in the US and trying to become a writer, trying to find love. And the thread that goes throughout the book is the discrimination that she faces and the discussions that she has with her young son about these things, because he's a 7 or 8 year old boy and he's starting to realize that being brown is different than being white. And he asks about racism, he asks about Trump and hate. And for example, at one point he asked, why do people not like brown people? And she says, well, sometimes they're afraid. But his father is white, he's Jewish, so he's mixed race, and he starts being worried that his father is also afraid of him. And she obviously tries to explain to her son that that is not the case, but he doesn't want to talk about that with his father because, well, he doesn't want to scare his father. It's just so endearing and mind-boggling as well. The art in the book is also different from usual graphic novels. Mira Jacob uses cutouts of the people that talk and then with speech bubbles, and the background is just photographs of whatever. So that means that it kind of has this cool static quality because the facial expressions don't change. I'm gonna have a picture of that somewhere around here so you can have an idea what that's like. I thought that was pretty cool. And now the book is about a serious topic, obviously, but it also has a lot of fun, especially her meddlesome family is awesome. Like when they all, every hour they call to check on whether she has a date with this guy that they all want to set her up with. It's very funny. So because this book is funny and because of it showing how freaking difficult a conversation with a kid is, especially when that conversation is about racism, when that kid is going to have to deal with racism, I really recommend you reading this book. It's good and I really enjoyed it. Now last but not least, I have the only physical book I read this week, and it's Allah is Not Obliged by Ahmadou Kourouma. Now, this book is originally written in French, and I hadn't done my research, so I had no idea and read it in English. The title is the same though, Allah is Not Obliged, or Allah n'est pas obligé, and it was translated by Frank Wine. Now, in this book, we meet Birahima, who is 10 years old and lives in Liberia, and when his mother dies, he becomes a child soldier, and he becomes part of the army of different tribal warlords and what that's like. Now this story is told from the point of view of Birahima, and his voice is very present, so sometimes he explains words or terms, for example, but with the voice of a kid. So there is everywhere in the world, a woman isn't supposed to leave her husband's bed, even if that husband curses her and punches her and threatens her. The woman is always wrong. That's what they call women's rights. Stuff like that. It's very honest and raw. And it's very good that his voice is present because of what's happening. You forget that this is told by a 10-year-old boy. You've got all of this violence, all of these child soldiers being killed. You've got the history of the different tribal lords and how they came to power and what they do with that power. You've got the history of Liberia to a certain extent, and also Sierra Leone, and all of the violence and torture and killing and rape. And it's kind of numbing when it's just over and over. There's no break at all. And then it's good to have sometimes, or regularly, this voice of this kid just, it kind of punches you because you realize it's a 10-year-old kid, but also it kind of unnumbs you for a bit, and then you're ready for the next horrors. This was a very good book. It really showed how all of this violence was normal for this kid and for all of these kids. There was no other option for them. When he loses his mother, he wants to become a child soldier because then he'll get food, then he'll get to plunder, and therefore have stuff that he can sell. He'll have a kalash, which is cool. He'll get to do drugs all day long. The killing is going to be there anyway, so why not participate. It's mind-boggling, it's something else, and for that you should give this a go. The title is Allah is Not Obliged, but the full title that the kid normally wants it to have is, let me check, Allah is not obliged to be fair about all the things that he does here on earth. And at the beginning of the book, he's still like, oh, Allah is fair, blah, 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 and slowly but surely that just deteriorates. Just to give you an idea. It's good to learn more about what happens in Africa as well, and what colonialism left behind it. So I recommend you reading this. That is all that I had to say about these books. If you've read any of them, or if you're curious about them, drop a comment below, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye!